The rain hammered against the tall windows of the Sterling Industries building as Marcus Sterling stood in his corner office, watching the city blur into streaks of light below. At 42, he had everything money could buy: a penthouse apartment, luxury cars, and a business empire that stretched across 3 continents. Yet as he loosened his silk tie and rubbed his tired eyes, the reflection staring back at him from the dark glass looked hollow and empty. "Daddy, when are you coming home?" The voice of his 6-year-old daughter Emma echoed in his memory from their brief phone call earlier. She had been staying with his mother for the past 2 weeks while he dealt with another corporate crisis. His ex-wife Sarah had left them 3 years ago, unable to handle what she called his obsession with success over family. She had remarried and moved to Europe, sending birthday cards twice a year and Christmas presents that Emma barely remembered to open. Marcus walked to his desk where a framed photo of Emma sat next to stacks of contracts. Her bright smile and missing front tooth reminded him of simpler times when her laughter could chase away any business worry. Now, at 6 years old, she was asking questions he didn't know how to answer. Questions about why other kids had mommies who picked them up from school, who braided their hair, and who knew their favorite bedtime stories. The intercom buzzed, startling him from his thoughts. "Mr. Sterling, the cleaning crew has arrived," his assistant's voice crackled through the speaker. "Send them in," Marcus replied, gathering his papers. He usually left before the cleaning staff arrived, but tonight's emergency board meeting had kept him late. As he packed his briefcase, he heard soft footsteps in the hallway. A young woman appeared in his doorway, her dark skin glowing under the office lights. She wore a simple gray uniform and carried a basket filled with cleaning supplies. Her hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and, despite the late hour, her eyes held a quiet alertness. She couldn't have been more than 25, but there was something in her posture that spoke of someone who had seen more of life's hardships than her years should have allowed. "I'm sorry, sir," she said in a soft voice with a slight accent he couldn't place. "I didn't know anyone was still here. I can come back later." Marcus looked up from his briefcase, struck by the gentleness in her voice. Most people who entered his office did so with either fear or calculated confidence. This woman showed neither. "No, it's fine. I was just leaving. You can start in here." She nodded and began to enter the room, but something made her pause. Her eyes had caught sight of Emma's photo on his desk. A small smile crossed her face, the first genuine expression Marcus had seen from anyone in his office all day. "Beautiful little girl," she said quietly, then immediately looked embarrassed, as if she had overstepped some invisible boundary. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have." "No, it's okay," Marcus found himself saying. "She's my daughter, Emma." The woman's smile deepened. "She has kind eyes. Like someone who brings joy wherever she goes." Marcus was surprised by the observation. Most people commented on Emma's looks or her expensive clothes in the photos. But this stranger had seen something deeper, something that Marcus himself sometimes missed in the chaos of his daily life. "I'm Marcus," he said, extending his hand. It was unusual for him to introduce himself to service staff, but something about this woman's presence felt different. "Aaliyah," she replied, shaking his hand with a firm but gentle grip. "Aaliyah Johnson." As their hands touched, Marcus noticed the calluses on her palms and the small scar on her wrist that spoke of years of hard work. But her handshake was confident, and she met his eyes without the deference he was accustomed to. "Well, Aaliyah, I'll leave you to your work," Marcus said, picking up his briefcase. But, as he reached the door, he found himself turning back. "Do you have children?" The question surprised them both. Aaliyah's expression shifted slightly, a shadow of sadness crossing her features before she composed herself. "No, sir. But I work with children sometimes. At the community center on weekends." She paused, then added quietly, "I've always loved being around kids. They see the world so differently than we do." Marcus nodded, though he wasn't sure why he had asked the question in the first place. Something about Aaliyah's gentle manner with Emma's photo had stirred a curiosity he couldn't explain. As he walked to the elevator, Marcus found himself thinking about the brief encounter. In his world of corporate sharks and social climbers, genuine warmth was rare. Aaliyah's simple kindness toward a photo of a child she'd never met had touched something in him that he thought had died along with his marriage. The elevator descended toward the parking garage, carrying him back to his empty penthouse where Emma's unused toys gathered dust and her bedroom remained perfectly clean because she was never there to mess it up. His mother did her best, but she was 73 and growing tired. Emma needed stability, consistency, and, most importantly, she needed someone who could give her the maternal love she craved. Marcus had tried dating after his divorce, but every woman he met seemed more interested in his bank account than his daughter. They would smile politely at Emma during arranged meetings, but their eyes held calculation rather than affection. Some had even suggested boarding schools or nannies so that Emma wouldn't interfere with their social lives. As his Mercedes pulled out of the garage into the rainy night, Marcus couldn't shake the image of Aaliyah's genuine smile when she looked at Emma's photo. For the first time in months, he found himself wondering about someone other than stock prices and merger agreements. The next morning brought another crisis at Sterling Industries. A major client was threatening to pull a multi-million-dollar contract unless Marcus personally flew to Tokyo to renegotiate terms. As he sat in the emergency meeting, half listening to his lawyers discuss damage control strategies, his mind wandered to Emma. "Daddy, all the other kids have moms who come to the school play," she had said during their phone call the night before. Mrs. Peterson asked if anyone special was coming to see me be a butterfly. Marcus had promised to be there, but, now with the Tokyo situation, he would have to miss another important moment in his daughter's life. The pattern was becoming too familiar, and the guilt was eating at him like acid. "Sir, we need a decision," his head attorney was saying. "The flight leaves in 4 hours." Marcus looked around the conference table at the faces of his executives, all waiting for his decision. 6 months ago, he wouldn't have hesitated. Business came first, always. But, sitting there, thinking about Emma performing in a school play with no family in the audience, something inside him rebelled. "Reschedule it," he said quietly. "Sir?" The attorney looked confused. "I said reschedule the Tokyo meeting. Send Johnson and Martinez. They can handle the initial negotiations." The room fell silent. Marcus Sterling never passed up personal involvement in major deals. Never put family before business. Never showed what his competitors might perceive as weakness. "But, sir, they specifically requested you personally." "If you don't show then, we'll find other clients," Marcus interrupted, his voice carrying a finality that ended all discussion. "My daughter has a school play tomorrow night, and I'm going to be there." As the meeting dispersed with obvious bewilderment from his staff, Marcus felt a strange sense of liberation. For the first time in years, he had chosen Emma over money. It felt terrifying and wonderful at the same time. That evening, as he worked late again, he found himself looking forward to the cleaning crew's arrival. When Aaliyah appeared in his doorway at 9 o'clock, he realized he had been waiting for her. "Good evening, Mr. Sterling," she said with the same gentle smile. "Marcus, please," he replied. "And, good evening, Aaliyah." As she began to clean his office, Marcus found himself stealing glances at her. She worked with quiet efficiency, but there was something peaceful about her presence. She hummed softly while she dusted his shelves, and, when she straightened Emma's photo, she did so with the same care she might show a precious family heirloom. "Aaliyah," Marcus said suddenly, surprising himself. "Do you mind if I ask where you're from? Your accent is beautiful." She paused in her cleaning, looking slightly uncertain. "I'm from Jamaica originally, sir." "I mean, Marcus. I came here 5 years ago." "Do you have family there?" A shadow crossed her face, and Marcus immediately regretted the question. "I did," she said quietly. "My grandmother raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 12. She passed 3 years ago. That's when I decided to come to America for a fresh start." The pain in her voice was carefully controlled, but Marcus could hear it clearly. Here was someone who had lost everything and was building a new life from nothing, yet she still had kindness to spare for a stranger's child. "I'm sorry," Marcus said softly. "That must have been incredibly difficult." Aaliyah nodded, then seemed to shake off the sadness. My grandmother always said that life gives us exactly the challenges we need to become who we're meant to be. I try to remember that when things get hard. Her words hit Marcus with unexpected force. When had he last faced a real challenge? When had he last had to rely on anything other than money to solve a problem? When had he last had to truly fight for something that mattered? She sounds like a wise woman, Marcus said. She was, Aaliyah agreed, her smile returning. She would have loved meeting Emma. She had a way with children that was almost magical. The conversation continued as Aaliyah worked, and Marcus found himself sharing more than he had intended. He told her about Emma's upcoming school play, about his struggles as a single father, about the constant guilt of choosing between his daughter's needs and business demands. Aaliyah listened with the kind of attention that Marcus hadn't experienced in years. She didn't offer solutions or judgment, just understanding. When he finished talking, she was quiet for a moment. You know, she said finally, still polishing his desk, my grandmother used to say that children don't need perfect parents. They need present parents. It sounds like you're trying to be present now, and that's what matters. Her words settled into Marcus's chest like a warm blow. For the first time since his divorce, someone had given him permission to be imperfect, to be learning as he went. As Aaliyah finished cleaning and prepared to leave, Marcus found himself wishing their conversation could continue. There was something about her presence that made him feel more like himself than he had in years. Aaliyah, he called as she reached the door. Thank you. For listening, I mean. She turned back with that gentle smile. Thank you for sharing. Emma is lucky to have a father who cares so much. As she disappeared down the hallway, Marcus sat in his now spotless office and felt something shift inside him. The empty spaces in his life suddenly felt less like voids and more like possibilities. For the first time since Sarah left, he began to wonder if there might be someone out there who could love both him and Emma not for what they could provide, but for who they were. The thought scared him, but it also filled him with a hope he hadn't felt in years. As he gathered his things to go home, Marcus found himself smiling. Tomorrow night, he would sit in a school auditorium and watch his daughter be a butterfly. And, for the first time in a long time, that felt like exactly where he belonged. The elementary school auditorium buzzed with excitement as parents filled the small folding chairs. Marcus Sterling adjusted his tie nervously, feeling oddly out of place among the casual-dressed families around him. His expensive suit and gold watch marked him as different, but, for once, he didn't care about appearances. Tonight was about Emma. He had arrived early to get a seat in the front row, something he'd never done before. Usually, business trips or meetings kept him away from school events, leaving Emma's teacher to gently remind him about missed performances through apologetic emails. Tonight felt different. Tonight felt like a new beginning. When the lights dimmed and the curtains opened, Marcus held his breath. 20 kindergartners dressed as various garden creatures filed onto the stage, and his heart swelled when he spotted Emma in her butterfly costume. Her wings were made of bright orange and black fabric, and she wore a huge smile that lit up her entire face. As the children began their choreographed dance, Marcus pulled out his phone to record every moment. Emma twirled and fluttered across the stage, her joy infectious even to the adults watching. When she spotted him in the front row, her smile grew even wider, and she gave him a little wave that made his eyes water with unexpected emotion. After the performance, Emma rushed off the stage and threw herself into his arms. "Daddy! You came! You really came!" "I promised I would, Butterfly," Marcus said, lifting her up and spinning her around. "You are absolutely perfect up there. Did you see my wings? Mrs. Peterson helped me make them extra sparkly," Emma said, showing off her costume. "And, did you see when I did the twirl? I practiced it every day." Marcus knelt down to her level, his hands on her small shoulders. "I saw everything, Emma. I'm so proud of you." As other families gathered around them, congratulating Emma on her performance, Marcus noticed how easily she interacted with the other children and their parents. She was social and confident, but there was something wistful in her eyes when she watched the other mothers fussing over their children's costumes and taking dozens of photos. On the drive home, Emma chattered excitedly about the play, but, eventually, her voice grew quieter. "Daddy, why doesn't Mommy ever come to my school things?" Marcus felt his chest tighten. This was a conversation they'd had before, but it never got easier. "Mommy lives very far away now, sweetheart." "But she loves you very much." Jessica's mommy said that some kids don't have mommies who can come, but that sometimes they get new mommies who love them just as much, Emma said, her voice small and hopeful. "Do you think I might get a new mommy someday?" The innocence and longing in her question broke something open in Marcus's chest. He pulled into their driveway and turned to face his daughter, seeing so much of himself in her dark eyes and determined chin. "I don't know, Butterfly," he said honestly. "But I promise you this, anyone who becomes part of our family would have to love you exactly as much as I do. And that's a very, very big love." Emma nodded solemnly, as if this made perfect sense to her 6-year-old logic. "Okay, Daddy. But if you find someone, can you make sure she knows how to make pancakes? Grammys are good, but they're not fluffy enough." Despite the emotional weight of the conversation, Marcus found himself laughing. "I'll definitely put pancake making skills on the list." That night, after tucking Emma into bed and reading her favorite story twice, Marcus found himself pacing his home office. Emma's questions about getting a new mother echoed in his mind, mixing with memories of Aaliyah's gentle smile and the way she had looked at Emma's photo. He shook his head, telling himself he was being ridiculous. He had met Aaliyah exactly twice, both times in professional settings. He knew nothing about her beyond her name, her Jamaican heritage, and her kindness toward children. Yet something about her had lodged itself in his thoughts like a splinter of hope. The next few days passed in their usual routine. Marcus threw himself into work while Emma stayed with his mother, coming home each evening feeling like he was missing the most important parts of his daughter's life. The Tokyo deal fell through, just as his executives had predicted, but, surprisingly, Marcus felt only relief rather than regret. Friday evening found him once again working late, anticipating Aaliyah's arrival with an eagerness that both puzzled and worried him. When she appeared in his doorway at 9 o'clock sharp, her presence seemed to brighten the entire office. "Good evening, Marcus," she said, her warm smile making him feel like he'd been waiting all week for this moment. "Good evening, Aaliyah. How was your week?" As she began her cleaning routine, they fell into easy conversation. Marcus found himself telling her about Emma's butterfly performance, describing every detail with the enthusiasm of a proud father. Aaliyah listened with genuine interest, asking questions and laughing at Emma's post-show demand for pancake-making skills in any future mother figure. "She sounds like she knows exactly what she wants," Aaliyah said, carefully dusting the bookshelf. "That's a good quality in a person, even a small person." "Sometimes I think she's more mature than I am," Marcus admitted. "She handles our situation with more grace than I do. I worry constantly that I'm not enough for her, that she's missing out on things other children have." Aaliyah paused in her work and looked at him directly. "Can I tell you something my grandmother taught me?" Marcus nodded, finding himself hanging on her every word. "She used to say that love isn't about being perfect or having all the answers. Love is about showing up, even when you're scared, even when you don't know what you're doing. From what you've told me about Emma, it sounds like you show up for her in all the ways that matter." Her words hit him with unexpected force. For months, he had been measuring himself against some impossible standard of perfect parenthood, always finding himself lacking. But Aaliyah was right, he was showing up. He was trying. Maybe that was enough for now. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I needed to hear that." They continued talking as she worked, and Marcus learned more about her life. She had worked 3 jobs when she first arrived in America, slowly building enough savings to enroll in evening classes at the community college. She was studying early childhood development with dreams of opening her own daycare center someday. "I've always felt called to work with children," she explained as she organized his desk. "There's something so pure about the way kids see the world. They don't judge based on what you have or where you come from. They just want to know if you're going to be kind to them." Marcus watched her straighten Emma's photo with the same careful attention she gave everything else, and he felt something shift inside his chest. Here was someone who understood what mattered, someone whose dreams centered around giving rather than taking. Aaliyah, he said suddenly, his heart racing with a decision he hadn't planned to make. I have a favor to ask, and please feel free to say no if it makes you uncomfortable. She looked at him with curious attention, her hands stilling on the cleaning supplies. Tomorrow is Saturday, and I'm taking Emma to the Children's Museum. She loves the hands-on exhibits, but, honestly, I'm not very good at the creative activities they have there. I was wondering. He paused, suddenly, unsure of himself. Would you consider joining us? As a friend, I mean. Emma could use someone who actually knows how to engage with kid activities, and I think you might enjoy meeting her. Aaliyah's expression shifted through several emotions: surprise, uncertainty, and something that looked like hope. For a long moment, she didn't speak, and Marcus worried he had overstepped some crucial boundary. I wouldn't want to intrude on your father-daughter time, she said finally. You wouldn't be intruding, Marcus said quickly. Emma's been asking about meeting new people, and, honestly, I think she would really like you. Aaliyah bit her lip, clearly torn between desire and caution. I don't know, Marcus. I'm just the cleaning lady. Your world and mine are very different. Her words sparked something defensive in Marcus. You're not just anything, Aaliyah. You're one of the most genuine people I've met in years. Emma could learn more about kindness and character from spending one afternoon with you than from a dozen playdates with the children of my business associates. The sincerity in his voice seemed to surprise them both. Aaliyah studied his face for a long moment, as if trying to read his true intentions. I don't have any nice clothes for a place like that, she said quietly. The Children's Museum isn't about nice clothes, Marcus replied. It's about finger painting and building with blocks and getting gloriously messy while learning. Emma usually comes home looking like she's been through a tornado, and those are always the best days. A small smile tugged at the corners of Aaliyah's mouth. When I was little, my grandmother used to take me to a place like that in Kingston. I loved the art room where you could paint whatever you wanted and nobody cared if you got messy. Then, you understand exactly what Emma needs, Marcus said. Someone who remembers what it's like to be 6 years old and think the whole world is full of amazing possibilities. Aaliyah was quiet for another moment, then nodded slowly. Okay. Yes. I would like that very much. The smile that spread across Marcus's face felt like the first genuine expression of joy he'd worn in months. Really? Really? But, I should warn you, I take children's museum visits very seriously. Emma might come home with paint in her hair and new ideas about building impossible structures out of blocks. That sounds perfect, Marcus said, meaning every word. As they made plans to meet at the museum the next morning, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in years: anticipation for a weekend that wasn't filled with work or obligation, but with the simple pleasure of watching his daughter discover the world through the eyes of someone who truly understood the magic of childhood. After Aaliyah left that night, Marcus called his mother to let her know he would be picking Emma up early in the morning for a special outing. Oh? Another business function? His mother asked with barely concealed disappointment. No, Mom. We're going to the Children's Museum. Just for fun. The silence on the other end of the phone stretched so long that Marcus thought they might have been disconnected. Marcus? Did you say just for fun? He laughed, hearing the disbelief in her voice and realizing how rarely he did anything purely for enjoyment. Yes, just for fun. And we're bringing a friend. A friend? Anyone I know? Marcus hesitated, not sure how to explain Aaliyah or his growing interest in her company. Her name is Aaliyah. She's someone I met recently who's wonderful with children. I think Emma will really like her. Again, silence, but this time Marcus could hear the hope in it. His mother had been gently suggesting that he needed to start dating again, though her suggestions usually involved the daughters of his business associates or women from the country club set. Well, his mother said carefully, that sounds lovely. Emma will be so excited to have a whole day with her daddy and meet someone new. That night, Marcus lay awake thinking about the day ahead. For the first time since his divorce, he was looking forward to spending time with a woman who might become important to both him and Emma. The thought terrified and thrilled him in equal measure. As he finally drifted off to sleep, his last conscious thought was of Aaliyah's smile and the way she had looked at Emma's photo with such genuine affection. Tomorrow would either be the beginning of something wonderful or an awkward mistake that would teach him not to mix his personal feelings with the practical needs of his life. But, as he slipped into dreams filled with laughter and finger paint and butterfly wings, Marcus found himself believing that some risks were worth taking, especially when they involved the possibility of giving Emma the loving, present mother figure she deserved, and giving himself the chance to love someone who saw the world through eyes of kindness rather than calculation. Saturday morning arrived with unexpected sunshine streaming through Marcus's penthouse windows. He had barely slept, alternating between excitement and anxiety about the day ahead. What if Emma didn't like Aaliyah? What if Aaliyah felt uncomfortable in his world? What if he was making a terrible mistake by mixing his growing personal feelings with Emma's need for stability? He dressed carefully in jeans and a casual shirt, wanting to look approachable rather than intimidating. When he arrived at his mother's house to pick up Emma, she was already waiting by the door in her favorite purple dress and light-up sneakers. "Daddy! Grammy said we're going to the museum and I get to meet your new friend." Emma bounced on her toes with excitement. "Is she nice? Does she like butterflies? Can she help me with the painting station?" Marcus knelt down to Emma's level, smoothing her dark hair. "Her name is Aaliyah, and, yes, she's very nice. She loves children and art, so I think you two will get along wonderfully." His mother appeared in the doorway, studying Marcus with knowing eyes. "You look nervous, son." "I'm not nervous," Marcus lied, then sighed. "Okay, maybe a little nervous. It's been a long time since I've introduced Emma to anyone new." "The fact that you're nervous tells me this woman is important to you," his mother observed. "Emma's going to pick up on that, so just be yourself. Children have excellent instincts about people." As they drove to the museum, Emma chattered nonstop about all the exhibits she wanted to show Aaliyah. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and Marcus found his anxiety melting into anticipation. Whatever happened today, seeing Emma this excited about sharing her favorite place with someone new was already worth it. They arrived at the Children's Museum 15 minutes early, and Marcus spotted Aaliyah immediately. She stood near the entrance wearing a simple blue sundress and white cardigan, her hair falling in soft waves around her shoulders. She looked beautiful, but, more importantly, she looked nervous too, which somehow made Marcus feel better. "Is that her, Daddy?" Emma whispered, tugging on his hand. "Yes, that's Aaliyah." Emma studied Aaliyah for a moment with the serious consideration only children can manage. "She has a kind face," she announced, apparently approving. As they approached, Aaliyah turned and saw them. Her nervous expression immediately transformed into a warm smile, and Marcus felt his heart skip in a way that reminded him he was more than just a father, he was also a man who had been alone for too long. "Emma," Marcus said, placing his hand gently on his daughter's shoulder, "I'd like you to meet my friend Aaliyah." Aaliyah knelt down to Emma's eye level, just as Marcus often did. "Hello, Emma. I've heard so many wonderful things about you." Emma stepped forward with the boldness that sometimes surprised Marcus. "Are you from Jamaica? Daddy said you have a pretty accent." Aaliyah laughed, a sound like musical notes. "Yes, I am from Jamaica. Have you ever heard of Jamaica before?" "It's an island with beautiful beaches and music," Emma said proudly. "We learned about islands in school. Do you miss it?" "Sometimes I do," Aaliyah admitted. "But I've found some wonderful things here too. Like meeting your daddy and now getting to meet you." Emma beamed at this response, and Marcus felt something tight in his chest loosen. His daughter's approval meant everything to him, and it was clear that Aaliyah understood how to speak to children without talking down to them. "Can you help me with the art station?" Emma asked eagerly. "Daddy tries, but he's not very good at creative things." "I would love to help you with art," Aaliyah replied, shooting Marcus an amused glance. "What's your favorite thing to create?" "Everything," Emma declared, grabbing Aaliyah's hand. "Come on, I'll show you." As Emma led Aaliyah into the museum, Marcus followed behind them, marveling at how naturally they interacted. Within minutes, Emma was chattering away as if she had known Aaliyah for years, showing off her knowledge of the different exhibits and promising to teach her how to use the pottery wheel. Their first stop was the water play area, where children could experiment with pumps, wheels, and channels to move water through various obstacles. Emma immediately began constructing an elaborate system, explaining her engineering choices to Aaliyah with the seriousness of a professional architect. "See, if you put the wheel here, it makes the water go faster, and, then, it can fill up this bucket," Emma demonstrated, her small hands sure and confident. Aaliyah watched with genuine fascination, asking questions that encouraged Emma to think more deeply about cause and effect. "What would happen if we made this channel steeper? Do you think the water would move differently?" Marcus watched from a nearby bench as Emma and Aaliyah tested various theories, getting thoroughly soaked in the process. Aaliyah's dress quickly showed water stains, but she didn't seem to care. She was completely focused on Emma, celebrating each small discovery as if it were a major scientific breakthrough. "She's a natural teacher," observed a voice beside him. Marcus turned to find another father watching the water play area. "Your wife has a gift with children." "Oh, she's not." Marcus began, then stopped. Looking at Aaliyah and Emma working together, heads bent over their water experiment, laughing at some shared joke, he could see why the man had assumed they were a family. They looked like they belonged together. "She's a friend," Marcus finished quietly, but, even as he said it, he knew it wasn't quite accurate anymore. Aaliyah was becoming something more than a friend, something he didn't have words for yet. Next, they moved to the art studio, where Emma immediately claimed a spot at the easel section. "I want to paint a butterfly garden," she announced. "Aaliyah, will you help me mix the colors?" "Of course," Aaliyah replied, tying an apron around Emma's dress. "What colors do you see when you think about butterfly gardens?" As Emma considered this question with typical 6-year-old intensity, Aaliyah caught Marcus's eye and smiled. In that moment, he saw not just her beauty, but her genuine joy in Emma's company. This wasn't someone trying to impress him through his daughter. This was someone who simply loved being around children and found real pleasure in their curiosity and creativity. Purple for the butterfly wings, and yellow for the sun, and green for all the grass, Emma decided. And maybe some pink flowers too. Aaliyah helped Emma mix paints on her palette, showing her how different amounts of each color could create various shades. "My grandmother taught me that painting is like cooking," she explained. "A little bit of this, a little bit of that, until you get exactly the flavor you want." "Your grandmother sounds really smart," Emma said, carefully applying purple paint to her canvas. "I wish I had a grandmother who taught me about painting." "Well, maybe I can teach you some of the things she taught me," Aaliyah offered gently. Emma's face lit up with such pure happiness that Marcus felt tears sting his eyes. This was what his daughter had been missing, not expensive toys or fancy clothes, but someone who wanted to share knowledge and experiences with her, someone who saw her as more than just a pretty little girl to be admired from a distance. As Emma painted, she kept up a steady stream of conversation, telling Aaliyah about school, her friends, her favorite books, and her dreams of having a butterfly garden in their backyard. Aaliyah listened to every word, asking follow-up questions that showed she was truly paying attention. "Daddy says maybe someday I'll get a new mommy," Emma said matter-of-factly, adding pink dots to her flower petals. "But she would have to be really special and love me a lot." Marcus tensed, worried about how Aaliyah would respond to such an innocent but loaded statement. But Aaliyah's expression remained gentle and thoughtful. "Any woman who got to be your mommy would be very, very lucky," she said simply. "You're a remarkable little girl, Emma. Do you want to have kids someday?" Emma asked with the directness that only children possess. Aaliyah's brush paused for just a moment. "Yes, I think I would like that very much. I love being around children. They help me see the world in new ways." "Well, if you ever want to practice being a mommy, you can practice with me," Emma offered generously. "I'm pretty good at being a kid." Both Aaliyah and Marcus laughed at this, but Marcus could see the emotion in Aaliyah's eyes. She was touched by Emma's openness, but also perhaps thinking about her own dreams and losses. They spent the rest of the morning moving through different exhibits, building structures with oversized blocks, creating music on the interactive sound wall, and exploring the miniature grocery store where Emma insisted on shopping for ingredients to make lunch for all three of them. Throughout it all, Marcus watched Aaliyah interact with Emma with growing amazement. She never once checked her phone, never seemed impatient or tired, never talked down to Emma or dismissed her ideas as childish. She engaged with Emma's imagination as if it were the most important thing in the world. When lunchtime arrived, they found a table in the museum's cafe. Emma immediately launched into a detailed explanation of her butterfly painting for Marcus, describing every color choice and design decision with the pride of an accomplished artist. And Aaliyah taught me how to make purple by mixing red and blue, but you have to be careful not to use too much red or it gets too dark, Emma explained, her small hands gesturing animatedly. It sounds like you learned a lot this morning, Marcus said, looking between his daughter and Aaliyah. What was your favorite part? Everything, Emma declared. But I think my favorite part was when Aaliyah told me about the butterflies in Jamaica. Did you know they have butterflies there that are bigger than my hand?